Laurie Mills.
Melissa Morrow,
Mary Elizabeth Kofer.
Victoria Johnson.
and I believe Rhett is joining us online. But is he here yet? Oh, he might join us online. Okay. So, and just so y'all know, for quorum, we have to be present in physical person. But Rhett, if he does join the meeting later, he can vote on stuff just like a regular commission member. He just doesn't count as quorum.
Have I met Rhett?
I don't know.
He's
either.
brand new, so hopefully you'll get to meet Rhett. So Rhett Bennett is our new Parks Commission member, and you'll meet him either today or in the future. All right. The first
Sean
thing
coming?
No, Sean is not coming. And that's it, right? Yeah. Okay, so discussion possible action on the minutes of the February 10th Park Commission meeting. I know that what was posted, did it already adjust the other part? Okay, so there was an adjustment from the original posting of that on one of the votes that 3 people had abstained, but actually only 1 person had abstained. Everyone else had voted in favor. All right, so do I have a motion to approve those minutes as amended?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. That does just remind me, if I ever forget to make sure if you are voting in favor, usually that goes really smoothly and we all know. But if you're going to abstain, I need you to physically say to me, I'm going to abstain during this vote. You don't have to say why. If you care to say why because you have a conflict or there's some specific reason, you can give it. And then make sure that I say any nays in case we get carried away and I forget to ask that. All right, thanks. All right. Discussion of possible action on the 2 parks commissioners members to conduct the park walkthroughs. Have y'all have seen those walkthroughs? We don't really have to stop here and do that, but would you make sure to sign up for some park walkthroughs?
Yeah, and that sign-up sheet is here.
You can send it to Lindsay.
Okay.
Yep. You can tell her, and then she'll tell everybody which ones are filled.
Okay.
But it's really helpful to have everybody just take a turn at least once a year to walk through.
Do you have those up there today that we can look at that when we leave?
Yes, ma'am.
That'd be great.
Great. Update from Western Hills Little League and Western Girls Softball. There was a small error in our posting of this. You may notice that the report that's in there is actually about Western Hills Athletic Club, which is the pool. So you can read that report. Basically, we're not posted to discuss it, but it tells you a little bit about the construction that they have going on and where they are in the process. I know Western Hills Little League and Girls Softball is, they've been starting having practices and games and should be going fully. So I don't know if, it doesn't look like anybody came from Western Hills Little League or the Girls Softball today. Discussion possible action regarding trash cleanup concerns related to organized sporting activities at the park. I'm not sure who put this on the agenda, but we just want to make sure that they are they're cleaning up after themselves. I do think there was something written that said that the dumpster belongs to Western Hills Little League. It does not. It belongs to the pool. So I don't think the pool really complains about people putting stuff in their dumpster, especially since it's sitting in Parkland. But we can work with, and I really say this to everybody, we are all citizens and helpers of this community. So if you walk by a trash can and you see our dumpster and you know it's overflowing or whatever, either call the city and let them know, or just grab it, wrap it up, and stick it in the dumpster yourself. Discussion, update, and possible action regarding Rollingwood Park Design Group meeting. All right, so I know we have Kurt here today. We have gotten our money's worth, I just want to say, from Kurt on that. He has done more versions of this park and dog, and we are so incredibly thankful. They've all been really thoughtful. He listens really well to the community and has added some additional, so right now I think we will move to looking at some of those options that we have. As an addition, and he'll touch on it a little bit, we did have an opportunity to meet with Rob, who is the city's, what do you call it, project manager for the construction that they just did on the streets and some of the water lines. He is awesome. He is super knowledgeable, and has a lot of great. He spans that what I sometimes feel like is a great distance between architects and design and contractors. He really has a good understanding of both and how to work with both, and gave Kurt some ideas and pricing that will help us move this forward. So, like I said, let's start with Kurt and let's go through some of the new options that he's designed. Oh, and I saw Steve Frank is on from girls softball. Steve, will come back to you after we go through this.
Right, so this scheme was the 0.5 acre, and each time we've gone through this, I feel like we've kind of said, okay, this is really important, we need to keep this, and our parameters are kind of, we're honing in on it, I feel like. So, one thing that's been very important is this outer trail, and so we've kept that, in all these new schemes, we kept that in there. But this shows the half acre. It just has the outer trail. We're shifting the fields, I believe, 30 feet in this one. Oops. Well, I'm never very good at this, but anyway, that's what this looks like. We had two dog park entrances. They're kind of pulled out of the main circulation onto the field here and here, and showing a few trees in the park and outside of the park. So that's that.
So the existing butterfly garden, it remains, in this one, it shows, it remains where it is.
We've taken a little bit out of it. It kind of goes through it right now. It's in this area.
So it would get moved.
It would get moved.
Okay. I just need to be clear on that.
Expanded it. And after looking at the plants over there, they could all be transplanted, I feel like. They're mostly smaller things. There's a yucca that can be moved.
I think, well, the yucca is not part of the butterfly garden, not really, it just happens to be there. But I feel like what is there could be moved.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, just curious.
And really, we're planning on expanding that same, those same butterfly type plants.
You're right, okay.
Okay, let's see. So let's go to the next one. This version is real similar. The main difference is we added a trail that would be next to the fence to provide access on this side of the park. The idea was we felt like people were going to wear a path there anyway, so we just gave them a defined path. And I think that's probably the only difference, except we expanded it to 0.55. So really, we're keeping all this the same. We're just moving everything this way.
Mary Elizabeth, do you have a question?
I just don't really know why we have to put a trail right in the middle of all this. We don't have one now. People go there typically for exercise. Why don't they stay on the existing trail? I look at the expense. I look at the whole thing. We started this. It started with trees. We wanted trees in the park. Then it came up that people didn't want the dogs to be there, or they wanted it moved. So we start looking at that. And now all of a sudden, and then we were looking at the parking. Now all of a sudden we're throwing a trail in the mix. I'm like, give me a break. What next? Do we need shaded seating? I mean, I just don't know what's next. I don't see why we need that trail there. that space could be taken up by more dog park. And in fact, it's not a dog park. It's an off-leash area, and we shouldn't be calling it dog park. There are just as many people there are as there are dogs. So, that's all.
Okay.
I would have to agree with that. I really don't understand the need for a trail that cuts across. I mean, that's really the only reason there. If somebody is too lazy to go around, they need to have a cut straight across. And that will either work or it won't work, and that'll be just fine. But investing all of this so people can walk a few less yards, really?
It's a park.
It's a park, yeah. So, I'm sorry, I just don't see the sense of it. I just don't.
But other than that, I love this. So keep going.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, my apologies. Other than that,
No, it's just-
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's
It's just
just
another
like,
option out of
Yep.
15. so.
Okay, yeah.
or
Literally
20 or 30.
Okay, now this one is showing the 0.6, and once again, we're keeping this the same, so the bulge comes in here to get that extra amount of land. And we're showing the trail in our. So those are the main differences. You know, just the size, and then if we don't think this trail's necessary, then that gives a little more field area.
I really like that. And the butterfly garden, we could just, I mean, like we agreed, those plants could be moved. I think we could do a better job on planting them, in fact, because we did not till that soil up. And I think that's where our problem is. And we could extend that area. Is this where we're talking about doing something on the, is that the east side? No, the north side?
North side, this side?
Yeah, is this where we were talking about doing something on that side to protect the trail? Oh, yeah, you have top of slope. Is that where we were talking about doing something there to go down?
No,
No, okay, very good.
that's been eliminated. So there's nothing beyond the walking trail, and the walking trail basically stays where it is.
Okay,
With
very good, thank you.
With the buffer that it has on the, what would you call that, the north side of it. The south side of it is new because we'll be creating, a fenced area next to it.
Okay,
And this pretty much represents where it starts to drop off the edge. And a few other trees, I've planted a few other trees out there that I think are special. There's a Texas persimmon that I'd like to preserve. And so I feel like this, is a pretty accurate depiction.
so there are a few trees there that we are
You know, in
keeping?
this area, that
Okay.
weren't on the survey.
Uh-huh.
This tree was on the survey. This little, this is the little oak that wasn't. So that's there, and then this is that persimmon that I'd like to try and keep.
That'd be nice.
So good. I guess I forgot. Okay.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Stay here for a while. No.
show stones on both sides, like what's been done over here by the field house. You can get, 18 inches, 2 feet of traditional height, to create these planted areas, and this could be more of the butterfly garden type plants.
That would be fun.
Here,
That would go between the trail and the off-leash area?
yes.
Okay.
Where we have room to do that, and then as it starts to drop down, there's some existing boulders and rocks we could even plant within that area, creating some more screening from the neighbors.
Yeah, we've always been concerned with erosion there, so that would be nice if we did more planting there.
And then this one, this was an idea.
We're not gonna let you touch that anymore.
I have a whole new respect for Vanna White after
I know, right?
No, this section is cut, there's some areas where the trail, we don't have that much distance in between. So the idea here was to go with more of a solid fence. And this is just showing like a stockade type fence. And we could plant vines on that, still have some plantings, but maybe not room to elevate it to the berm. So that's showing that scenario.
That would be fun though. We have so many beautiful native vines that we could use.
And then I went into
So
I don't
close.
have the magic touch. This is showing kind of idea of how one of the entrances could look like, where it's offset from the main activity. You still have the path going through. It's a double gated entry, and on this version, I was showing more of a solid fence out here, and then it became more of a transparent fence. But it could be a nice area with trees and groupings of boulders. So that's what that was. And then I was going to show some images of fence ideas. Well, so I went and visited a dog park and took my dogs over there to really get an idea of how they work. And it was in Round Rock, and it was pretty simple. It was a larger, I think it was 2 acres. Um, okay.
The dog entrance, the parking area.
No, anyway,
I think open fence, maybe? Yeah, there you
oh
go.
yeah, okay. These are different options of fencing. This is one play up here. Leave. Yeah, Alex had done this, and really what she's showing here is you have ball fields, but it's still within a park, and so the fencing, maybe change the fencing to split rail, something that's not, you still have the backstops, but it's something that has more of a park feel rather than just a ball field. And this dog park that I went to, actually the dog fencing was the same fencing as the ball field, so it served two purposes. This is showing an idea of the corner of, I believe that's Wallace and Rollingwood. Oh, there it is. Here they've combined, boulders, split rail fencing, and then the native plants. And I think that's real nice. And we can just use those same elements in the park.
Are they doing that there?
No, it's just a demonstration.
That's,
But the ideas for around our entrance area
yeah, you
and
can see
throughout.
this is what I was talking about, where you have the trail, kind of an elevated planting area created from these ledge stones. It's a nice look. Oh, that's the parking lot. Yeah, I'll probably get into that yet. So,
Just a second.
oh yeah, we are. Okay, well I think that's all I have.
Okay. So stay right there. I'm gonna start with the Parks Commission members to see if they have any questions, want some clarification, any suggestions, ideas.
Just one general question in the discussion of the Great Lawn. What size is the Great Lawn anticipated to be?
I have that on. Well, on each one of those drawings, I have the size of
The playfield area is, I think, what that's called. It's in the light blue.
So it's like, depending on the size of the
Whatever you give
off-leash
to the,
area.
so,
If in these packet pictures, it says like 0.76.
this is, look, right here is your great lawn. Playfield area, so the ball fields are your great lawn.
Okay, so you're counting the ball fields as part of the Great Lawn.
Plus the summer.
Yes, all of that. All of this is this color, which makes it the area for play. So the more you take from this, the less you have of that.
Yeah. Well, my concern is I don't usually think of a Great Lawn public park as having ball fields on it, because I know we can't use those ball fields over there.
But we've always given this to the dogs. So it's all usable when they're not playing or practicing.
Okay.
Do we have other questions? I know then my next layer will be asking our two council liaisons to ask any questions.
I have a question.
Okay, Kevin?
So,
Do you mind going to the,
no, that's
so,
fine.
yeah.
It's Kevin Glasheen. And could we zoom out that picture a little bit? It's kind of zoomed in. There you go. Okay, so, and can we go to the one that shows the 0.6? Thanks. So I think option 3, version C. Thank you. So I like this plan, and I noted y'all's points about the trail, and I agree. And I want to say in general that I think you've done great work and appreciate it, and thank everybody here for all their work on this, especially Alex. All the design elements that you guys have put in there, I think, are all excellent and really add a lot to the whole project with the landscape plans and the split rail fence and the boulders and such. So what occurred to me after our last group meeting, and I had emailed Kurt and Melissa about it, was that red line that separates the 2 ball fields from the softball field is the existing fence line, and we're talking about taking that down and putting up a removable fence. So I asked them to look at what it would take to get another 0.1 acre in that for those 2 ball fields, which I can't read it from this distance. What is the size of those right now? It's 0.63. And to get that to 0.73 and give a little more room for those fields, if you move that fence in 17 feet, and Kurt illustrated that for me with a line, I think that when you look at the overall park picture, which I also asked him to depict the other ball fields for context, because when you look at the other ball fields, you see that you've really got, it's like a 5-to-1 ratio of ball fields to off-leash dog area in terms of space use. So we're talking about using 20% of this flat usable land for the off-leash dog area, and I don't think that it impairs the utility of the softball field to move that removable fence in 17 feet. I think it adds a lot to those 2 fields, so that's just something to consider.
So moving it to the south?
Moving it to the south.
Okay, 17 feet.
Yep, 17 feet. That gets you 4,000 square feet, which is almost a tenth of an acre, and it adds a lot of utility, I think, to those fields. In my impression. Do you want to comment on that?
I guess I don't really have a comment. I don't know if it impacts the usability of this.
Sure.
That's the only thing.
Right, and I know you mentioned that last time. It's not really like ball field specifications and standards and design aren't your thing, and we will have invited and will continue to invite input from softball and baseball and such, but I just wanted to let y'all know that was a thought that I had, and that Kurt has drawn that. It's not in today's materials, probably because it came out late, but we'll be seeing it later, and maybe you can circulate it to the group at some point. So that's it.
In my mind, if it's a movable fence, we can have it 17 feet in or 17 feet out, depending on the age of the kids who are playing. Yep.
I like that we're thinking along those lines, though.
But that during the weeks we don't have baseball and softball happening, that it would be a fence that would create more of a great lawn. Kevin? Other Kevin?
Other Kevin. So are you going to go back to the agenda item about the working group and have a discussion about what the working group's going to do, how it's going to work? That was item number 3 on the agenda.
We're on, let's just say that we're on 6, 7,
Okay.
and if you need something from 8, all at the same time.
What I want to
Yeah.
eventually hear is kind of what the next steps are for the
Oh.
working group and for this body, because there's other things besides drawings and stuff that we could be working on for this project. But relative to this, I like what Kevin just said with making that fence movable and taking back some more room. But it brings back the bigger issue that I have is I simply just don't know what the requirements are for the Little League. What really we're adding, what we're taking away, what we're doing. And I'm not talking about the contract, I'm talking about for how it's used and what makes sense. And that group of people is not being, I don't feel like they're being represented that well in this discussion yet. So if this came to council, my feedback would be exactly like, what are those needs? And are we accommodating or are we not?
So, I'm so glad you said that.
Okay, so we're getting to that.
Well, I can share with you some information.
Okay.
Western Hills Little League and Western Hills Girls Softball, and I believe, is Steve Frank on this call? Can you tell? Okay, great. So Steve, we may get you to speak. We went through the, Western Hills Little League has one of the biggest softball signups they've ever had, over 1,000 kids. And they have given us their schedule, their practice and game schedules. Just so you know, the field 1 is being used 23 and a half hours a week, being scheduled. Field 2, 16 hours a week. Field 3, 8 hours a week. Field 4, 13 hours a week. And Field 5, 11 hours a week. Now, I've done a little bit of because I work in youth sports, that's basically 72 hours a week that are scheduled for them right now. When you break down what a youth field that does not have lights has available to it, Monday through Friday, basically I took the schedule that they gave us and I broke it down to, they put all of their practices and games Monday through Friday between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. That gives you 15 hours per field of playtime. On Saturdays, you get 11 hours from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And on Sundays, 12 p.m. I didn't put anybody in the morning because a lot of people don't like to have scheduled stuff for families on Sunday mornings. You could still do it, but we don't have it, and that would be 7 hours. Giving weekends another 18 hours. So weekly, we have about 33 hours available per field. Given their request of 72 hours, 4 fields gives you 132 youth programmable hours available. 3 fields gives you 99. Now, again, of course, everyone wants the prime time between 5 and 6. You really do have to use the 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7 to be able to do that. But when we start talking about our contract with them and their ability to run the programs that they are doing right now and what they have done, I do believe that we can fit, we could technically fit all of their programming within 3 fields. Of course, there's softball and baseball, so those, and I would say both of them kind of consider the field 1 and 2 premier baseball, premier softball. And the other day I saw them, they were even using their larger one for their T-ball, and just because it's a nicer laid out field. So given that, now that doesn't give you the parameters, except with what Kevin is suggesting about if we moved it in 17 feet. We know that field 1 and 2 are being used at their current size, so there's no question about that size. What we're really talking about is 3, 4, and 5 and how they're being used and what size still makes them workable. I totally agree with you, sitting down with them and saying, who are you and what are you scheduling down here, would help us make sure that we still can accommodate all of those things. But yeah, I just wanted to, so yes, we are working towards that even without them physically coming here and saying it, with the information that they're giving us.
And that's good data. I'd like to see it written down because I'm not gonna remember any of that. But I got the.
Didn't have it in time for the packet, but I can definitely share it.
But in the coming months, as this goes further to council, having that type of detail is helpful as we deliberate on this. I will say, just over the last couple of months, I've been going up during peak dog season, been going up during peak Little League season. And one thing that makes me happy is that field, all 3 and 4 and 5 get used. When those groups are there, it's all used. And it's really great to see the park being used. Now, we know how the dogs and the people that gather up there to hang out in that park use it. It was interesting how the little kids spread out and they use all the fields even when they're not playing games. So, it's just something to consider that, Little League's a little different than it was when I grew up with the warming up and all of the different things that happen. So I think it's just going to be something that we're going to have to deliberate on at some point. So I'm not saying one way or another, because I think there's, both parties use the field in interesting ways, which is good. Just at first glance, I wasn't involved in the meeting when you talked about all the different trail specifics here. I also am kind of in the camp, I don't love the middle trail, just because it seems like it's something we could do later if we needed it. And I also don't like shortening we don't have a plan anymore, but I don't like the shortening of the field because people do walk it and I don't want to take away from something from another group of people or make it shorter thing. So those were just my biggest concerns. It's just not really concerns. I think we're going to need to cover those topics in more detail before council is going to even be close to be considering anything on this. And I think people in the community, I'm pretty sure, some people in this room are going to say this before this meeting's over, but it's on my mind as well. I had one question for Kurt. Is this green line here, the very outside edge, is that effectively the top of the drop off and tree line? Okay. So we're not going down that hill at all on any line.
Great.
I think that's.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that was my only question. Other things, I just want to kind of have a more definitive.
Yeah.
What we're doing next, who's doing what next, and the bigger picture
So
conversation.
what I'm
when it's
hearing
right.
from this group so far, and then we can we can open it up to the public to speak. Is I'm hearing overwhelming. People are really happy to have the outside loop there with the buffer that it has. I'm hearing that the inside trail is something that nobody feels is a priority at this point, and so we can let that go, and so it can be incorporated into either side, whichever way we go. What else are you guys, any other major, we would love to have a removable fence that's both sturdy and can allow for a great lawn when we're out of season for sports. Any other?
Would you still plant trees
That's a
in
good
the
one.
middle?
What do you guys feel about having trees along there or not having trees?
I think the more trees, the better.
I have no problem with additional trees, of course not.
Are you talking about trees as the barrier between the two?
Just that some of,
Yards.
in this design, you have trees on the outside and being planted in the middle. Between whatever size area, all of his designs had trees coming down through the middle.
There's going to be a fence there anyway, correct?
Okay, sure.
I just wanted to, Alex Robinette, if you plant trees there, you limit yourself for future options if you wanted to expand all the fields. If you have trees on the ball field side, that is a safety risk for kids running, backing up to catch a ball, head down, running, they could hit the trees. And I think you guys have mentioned that if trees are planted in the dog area, all the dogs are going to pee on them. I suppose you could fence them off or do something to protect the trees. But if there's not a trail there, and if the trees are on the outside, that might be a better use of where you get your shade. Just something to consider.
Great. All right, so we'll open this up. Go ahead. And we will try to, because we're 20 till 1. Hadn't really checked in with council or commission members. How late can you stay?
I'm
Does
good.
someone have a stopping time?
1:30.
1:30?
If I have to.
Okay, 1:30. All right.
I'll be very brief.
No, you're good.
Casey Hoffman, 2800 Hatley. Kurt, I'm a great believer in the .6. I love that we're going to get rid of the trail. But what about the dog? I don't call it the dog cemetery, but the people have put down plaques for their dogs, and I wanted to make sure they were represented, Kevin, so that all constituencies get heard. So are you going to move those, or do you have to move them?
They're right in this area, right here.
Do you mean the bricks?
Yeah.
Yeah, the brick.
I was like, wait, we have a dog cemetery going on I don't know about?
I know.
The pavers.
But there's a fountain.
Yes.
We're burying our dogs at the park?
We would move those bricks into and incorporate them into the new trail.
Darn it, I wanted to tell Lori we were keeping it a secret.
Brian, you looked like you were about to lean forward and say something. Okay.
One thing, also, that when I went to that dog park and looked at it, they did have some large trees with benches, but the other thing they had was, some structures for shade with picnic tables, and those were being used a lot, so that could be, if we didn't wanna do the trees here, maybe, shade is, an important part from everything I've read of the dog park, so maybe it could be some structures.
We considered that before, and we're looking for maintenance free.
Yes.
we don't want, we really don't want those structures.
You get better shade on the south side too, because planning on the north, they're not gonna give you shade for these.
But thank you for the suggestion. For things that you see, we need those, that kind of input.
Anybody else have want to speak? All right. Dare I jump on the electrified acreage number? Thoughts?
For the electrified acreage,
I didn't want to set myself on fire here. So, does anybody have any thoughts about the size?
I really like the .5, the dog park version A that gives the baseball fields .76. And I feel like the .5, if you take out the trail on either of the other two, what amount of, what is that give and take there?
Well, I don't know offhand, but I drew it at 6 foot wide, and I could calculate that, but not, couldn't tell you just looking at it.
Well, it's gonna be about .03 acres, which is gonna be about 1,300 square feet.
The third of the 17 foot.
Right, exactly. So it's like .03.
Does this involve algebra?
But 43,560 is the square footage in an acre, and if 17 feet gave you .1, then 6 feet's gonna give you about .03, which is about 1,300 square feet.
boy, it's handy to have someone like him
Yeah.
around.
He's estimating. So in the point, in the first one, A, it doesn't have the trail, so you kind of get a sense of, you know, how it puts that at .76. Now, we haven't talked since Alex mentioned the not putting trees in the middle. I mean, that is something that we could delay. We could do the trees on one side and wait and see how we feel about putting trees in the middle later. That could be a phased, you know, decision.
Are we still talking about the size? Or-
Yeah, we're still talking about the size, but I just thought I'd mention the whole tree thing, because that also
So,
kind of impacts the usable size.
so what exactly is the size of the off-leash area right now?
There is no, I mean, it's
The
ball
off-leash
fields
area-
So
3, 4, and 5.
how big is 3, 4, and 5?
1.2 is what it is.
So we're talking about going from 1.2 to point,
1.2, which is
Oh,
how
okay.
I got the .6, was half of it.
yeah, I can't see going to anything less than 0.6. I just think that's unreasonable. I think the fact that we're diminishing that size at all for for the community and the kind of use it gets, and the people that go there, the number of people that use it, I cannot see going less than 0.6.
Well, if we're creating a club or an association or whatever, we're gonna get rid of the dog walkers who bring multiple dogs at a time. We are going to cut down the number of people using it
That,
with this, you know, with the way we change this. You won't have the outside vans coming up with 4 and 6 dogs.
then good, then 0.6 might be doable then. It won't be so painful, but I still can't see going less than 0.6.
So you bring up a really good point, though. We don't have to wait at all to start the club and make restrictions on who can come and bring their dogs there. There's nothing stopping us, regardless of what size our dog park is eventually. We could start moving forward with defining what the rules are, like no commercial dog walkers, basically, and that you can't come with more than 2 dogs, regardless of if you own them or not. I think some of those rules we should be working on already.
You
So,
know,
this-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
My suggestion was that you get a group of the people who actually use the dog park as essentially a subcommittee to start working on that and to come back to you guys with some suggestions on how they would like to manage it, and then you guys could weigh in on it then, I think.
That's a good idea. But for one thing, I think it's gonna be hard to police, and so getting some input would be good.
Yeah.
I'm also a little bit concerned about, I have a neighbor who's elderly and she pays someone to walk her dog. She can't.
Yeah. I
And-
mean, well, again,
She pays
that will
someone to
be-
take her to the dog park or walk the dog?
She walks the dog to the dog park. I don't think they spend much time there. The dog can't walk far. But I think I think they're bringing it to the dog park briefly.
I think the dog users can address all of that, come up with a proposed list of rules. And I've been talking to folks up there, and we've got some ideas about, for example, licensing, getting a license to use it or becoming a member of the, we're gonna call it the Lowell Canine Club, so it doesn't say dog park. And you become
Thank
a
you.
member of the canine club, and if you have a membership, then it can be members only. And people can, love the process and become a member. And you can have separate, fees for residents and non-residents, like they do. You pay a different fee at Barton in the Springs if you're a resident of Austin or not a resident. But, and they can police that with, like, I think this morning there was some aggressive dog that we were saying, that dog's not gonna be in the club.
Yes.
And I think that the regular users can police that pretty easily if it's a membership deal. It's like, are you members only, are you a member?
It's going to be a difficult situation because it is a strong, vital community and a thriving one. And there's some people that have relationships for years and years and years and years. And this is their primary social activity. This is where they meet and greet and get out and do things. And I understand the need with a smaller park that you have to start turning people away. But the smaller it is, the more people will have to turn away if we're gonna have a sustainable park. At some point, if you've got heavy usage, the fields aren't gonna stand up to it. And if you take the dogs that we have, and even if there's a reduction in number, and the people that we have, and you put them on a field that's half the size of what they were used to, you're going to have a lot of problems, simply because of sustainability. You've got more dogs using less turf. You've got to maintain it so it doesn't turn into a dust bowl or into a muddy flat, and that's going to be harder. So I'm of the view, as a friend of mine says, the bigger the better. And so I don't see how we could possibly consider anything below 0.6. I just don't.
And I would say also that before, I don't know how many recommendations are gonna get passed on the council. I have not, like, invited the public. I sent out my newsletter yesterday, which goes out to 500 people. I don't know how many read it, but I said there are gonna be future opportunities to give input. And so I did not invite people to come to this meeting to weigh in on that. I don't really know what we'll get when we do that. I just didn't wanna do that over and over again and wear everybody out with all the input. But certainly at council level, we're gonna get a bunch of that. We're gonna have to do some of that.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, are you stepping up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. Okay, Steve. Can you unmute so that we can hear you? And
Do you want Kevin to go? Can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. I don't mind going after Kevin if he has something.
Yeah, Yeah, I think again, I'm a little, there's a laundry list of things that need to get done. And there's issues that could still derail whatever acreage conversation that we're having. And I'd really like to see kind of a list of that stuff and have people starting to work on that stuff. We recommended a group of people, dog owners, we recommended subcommittees. The original idea when Kevin proposed the working group and I proposed making the park commission the working group was so the park commission could subdivide topics, go off and work and have people work through this and just, and I'd like to see the pros and cons of the different things to be able to make decisions on it. Again, I think we're at the stage to start having those kind of conversations because I agree that the smaller the park, the more limited you're going to have to use it. because it's gonna have a bunch of other problems, and those things matter. Because I don't think there's gonna be some problem in there we can't solve, but I'd certainly like to know that before we get a lot further down the road here.
Do you have some specific things that you're wanting to be covered?
Well, we've talked about what would be the usage restrictions. We've talked about
Usage restrictions for,
like number of people that would use this new
He's talking about the canine
off-leash
club.
area.
okay, so the
Right.
dog park rules.
There's the fees issues, there's the, I had a list, I sent this to you a while back, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
But that's part of, I think, the work of this body is to come up with that list of stuff. Because it is things we need to work through.
Is that something that you want the park design group to work on, or is that something you want the Parks Commission to work on?
I originally thought the Parks Commission would delegate the process. Whether
Delegate,
the Park Commission would decide how they want to move forward. Does the Park Commission as a body want to solve these problems? Or does it want to delegate it to a working group, create a separate working group, or go to the dog owners to be a group on certain things? But I think it's up to y'all to decide what the process, y'all, the Park Commission, to decide what that process should be.
well, it seems like definitely today, we
Like the-
established that dog park user rules is an important thing. We can, I guess my question back to you was, do you believe that belongs in the park design group, building a subgroup from that? Or do you believe that's park commission members should create that?
I think that's a conversation the Park Commission should decide as a group how they want to do
Okay.
it. Because when all of these things are gonna have to come together before council's gonna make any big decisions. I think that would be the feedback you'd get from council of, good work so far, what about these other steps? Cause Kevin's brought up the licensing and the, dog owners group or all this other issues before, and I think it's time to start digging into those a little bit to see if they're really practical solutions, because
So are you saying we shouldn't move forward with any more design work until we have a list of dog park user
no, I'm
rules?
saying these things can
Okay.
be done in parallel, and I'm saying it's time to start thinking about those things, cause you've got a bunch of work up here.
Yeah.
And I'm worried, just as a project guy, are we gonna unearth something else in those other deliberations that's gonna make some of these decisions easier to make? Or we have to unwind some decisions because we haven't explored that stuff. Kevin?
We can go over there.
Yeah, I think the design work group is kind of, I think we've kind of done our work on that, and I think it's kind of back to Park Commission as to what step to go forward as far as design goes. But I would say about the dog park, I'm going to call it the Canine Club. We've had some discussions on that, and I think that it should be a group that involves at least Phil McDuffie, because he's there every day, twice a day, and he's on council, he's not on Park Commission, so he should be on it. I think Diana Wallace from Park Commission, who's there every day at the dog park, should be on it. And I'd be glad to help with it too. I think that part of the problem with the whole Canine Club situation is there's so many different little competing factors. Like for one, if it's a public park, there are some restrictions on excluding people who don't live within Rollingwood, okay? So we can run into legal problems. But I think one of the concepts that we've got, I can tell you that at least I've got consensus with one other council member on as we've kind of talked about it, is that it would be a club that would have its own, it would be an entity that we create. There would be some kind of license or use agreement or lease from the city to the Canine Club that would give them control over that dog park area, much the way that baseball leases the fields from the city. And so that would give some security to the people who use the dog park that this isn't going to be, they're not going to expand the ball fields further into the dog area, as was already suggested today. That's a triggering suggestion for people who are very concerned about losing part of their off-leash area already. So we'd create an entity, there'd be a lease, and then I think the more that we let that group work it out over time, the better, rather than trying to lay out what, the park commission or council making rules for them on when, where, and how they're gonna let people use that area, they're gonna have to figure it out. And I think they'll probably start out without charging fees. Instead, it'll just be, you apply, you be a member, your dog meets the other dogs, you get admitted. There may be a cap on membership, kind of like there is at Western Hills Athletic Club. There's a cap on how many people can be a member, and there may end up being a waiting list. There may be a preference for Rolling Wood residents. I think those are things that just have to get worked out ad hoc, after the fact, as work your way through the process. But I think the starting point is to create the entity, the association, and then come up with some use agreement or lease, whatever you want to call it, get you guys to bless that, send it on to council. But we're going to need legal to help us with that too.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So, other thoughts on that? So it sounds like in parallel to the progress that we're making, we would like to have a subgroup that's going to help us define, again, even in our current off-leash area, some dog park user rules and a canine club possibility.
I think we could even start moving forward with creating a canine club and a proposed lease and use agreement. And we can work on that. We don't need a subcommittee on the parks to work on that, but we'll bring it back to parks for y'all's input once we have it. Something for y'all to look at and poke at, and, see if you can improve or like it or not.
Does that make sense to parks? Does that make, does that sound good?
Is there any part of this that goes through the city? Because we don't have staff to handle, I would assume, the canine club.
No, it's just like baseball, like city staff doesn't manage the baseball field schedule, for example, and what games are scheduled when, that's all.
So the canine club handles the licensing and all of that themselves. Okay. Don't forget Steve.
Oh, yeah, Steve.
Or membership,
Sorry.
it may be done by membership instead of license.
Are you moving off topic?
No, I'm letting Steve speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, hello.
Okay.
Thanks. Just a couple comments. I originally provided kind of minimum or recommended distances to Alex when she was originally drawing all these up for fields. And I know we also discussed temporary fencing, which I'm game for as long, but now it kind of talked about getting moved. I don't think moving it a lot is going to be beneficial. Moving it in 17 feet, like that would not work for the field 2 at all. It's already a small field compared to the recommended distance. And by moving it in 17 more feet, 12 and 14 probably wouldn't be able to play there. 10, we definitely have some 10-year-olds that can hit it almost to the fence now. So that's probably, of everything that's mentioned, that'd probably be my number one no-go of moving it in.
Yeah.
The 0.6, evidently the dimensions are pretty small on these fields. So, I'm probably against that, but I'm more against moving 17 feet in on field 2. And that was the only input I wanted to give.
Steve, thank you for showing up.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry I wasn't there. Melissa, I didn't actually know there was this meeting, so
But your input has been great. You've been consistent, and we really kind of need the help. So thank you.
Yes,
And we
thank you
need
very
help
much.
before we get too far down this path and before we make a recommendation to council.
Mhm.
So this is very helpful.
Alex?
Actually, I guess that was kind of my question is what and when are you going to present things to council? Because I think you were supposed to meet 2 weeks ago. My understanding was that for the next council meeting, they would probably have something in front of them to start the conversation, because as you know, they like to see things in advance long before they take a vote. And so I just saw that it's not on the agenda for council tomorrow, so that's another month that goes by where they still haven't seen the progress that's being made. And I know with respect to the parking lot, because they didn't get that for a long time, and even then when they did get it, they didn't get a lot of the pieces that they needed to be able to have a meaningful conversation. And so from my perspective, the sooner you get this in front of council, the better, because maybe that's your goal, is to get to one recommendation, but I think that if you have a concern about the community showing up, upset, I think you really need to maybe consider presenting 2 or all 3 of these schemes to council, and let them weigh in on it at this point, because they're not going to take a vote. They're going to have a conversation. They're going to ask questions. Yep. And so I had hoped it would be with them tomorrow, but apparently not. So I'm just hoping that by the end of today that maybe you all make that decision about what you're going to do.
What to
So
share.
Yeah.
I had asked, I had talked to the city staff about it, and they said that they would cover it in their report, since we weren't going to have enough time to post it for the council with a decision or with anything, that they would include it in their staff report of what we're covering today here. And that we would make sure that all of the council members knew that they could go to the Parks Commission packet and familiarize themselves with what we were discussing today. But since we wouldn't have a recommendation, and even honestly, I didn't really think, even if we'd had the meeting 2 weeks ago, that we'd have a recommendation ready for council yet. We still have a lot of discussion, and we're working through the designs that Kurt has shared with us.
But again, is it one recommendation, or are you going to maybe present them with multiple? So,
well, we have all 3 of them that
Yeah.
will be talked about by the staff. So they'll get to look at all 3 of them, and that's really up to council and the mayor to decide whether they want a 1 or a 3.
yeah, but they can't have the conversation until they have it in front of them.
Right. Well,
So
that's
maybe
why
we
we
take
did it
out the
through
inside
staff.
trail and give them those 3 designs for April.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
And I think Alex is making a good point that to move the ball forward, we do have to get it in front of council. And I think, there's been a lot of good work that's been put into all of this, and they're good options, and they, I think there's going to be different support for different ones. My concern as a council member is that before we're going to vote on something, I want to make sure that it gets circulated out to the public, and that I let the public know that, hey, we're going to vote on this, because that's real concerning to me, because that's one of the reasons I ran for council, because I kept hearing like, oh, they're voting on something tomorrow night, to do this or that, and I was like, what? I never heard of it. So that's why I sent out a newsletter. So I would love to say get all 3 of these and send up to council, and if this commission wants to recommend one over another, fine. I mean, whatever, but I think there's support for all of them, and I think that that's a good message, is that there's support for all of them, and ultimately it becomes a policy decision. And then if we get those sometime next week, we can circulate them, and then we could post it for our next meeting and let everyone know, hey, these are the options that we're considering, and we're going to vote on it. So if you really care strongly about this, show up and have your voice heard. And because I hadn't invited people to do that, and I want to do that. Even if we do that, the way I know council works, okay, I'm with Alex. I want to see stuff get done, and especially and we have advanced things on the parking lot, I'll say, because one thing that came out of council discussion was, hey, we need a project manager who can give us an idea of what different stuff cost estimates, and we retained them, and I've worked with the mayor offline between council meetings to get that done, and it's great. And I'm really glad to hear that your report about it. But the way council works, and it's just always works this way, we're going to have those options, we're going to start discussing them, all the publics are going to show up, and then they're not going to want to vote on it, because somebody's going to have questions, and somebody's going to want this and that, and it just goes that way. I promise you, I would vote if they will vote in the April meeting, but it's going to end up being the May meeting, and we're looking at doing all this construction in the fall anyway, or the late summer, and I think we'll still be on track to get it all done, you know, for the fall, but, you know, construction done in the fall, but we do have to kick it up.
Well, I think we've had some really good discussion today about the design parts. Part of not putting stuff up before the council half-baked is we ended up, if you'll remember, not too long ago with something that was sent out to people as of these are options 1, 2, and 3 that didn't come from parks, didn't come from anyone, and suddenly everyone got very upset and was like, you've already made decisions, and this wasn't even something that parks. So we've tried to listen to the public and say we've slowed down the process. We're trying to work with our design expert, and and then also remembering this all started with the parking lot. This wasn't, when we started this process, our goal was not to create a separate off-leash area. It was literally to complete the parking lot. And one of the things that Kurt and I, when we talked to Rob, said was that you're going to have some significant cost savings if you can do the construction for the off-leash area at the same time that you do the parking lot. And so, as much as we're trying to race word, we've gone pretty as far as we can with the parking lot, without addressing the, until coming up with a final design with whether we are having a separate off-leash area and what size that off-leash area, and then what some of the amenities and now rules that we want to incorporate in. So listen, if one of us owned this piece of land, it would be done. One person would make a decision and we'd be done. But I'm really trying to build consensus and trust in the community, and it's sometimes frustrating to have people roll their eyes at you that they're trying to slow it down, and I'm not trying to slow it down. I'm trying to bring something that everyone feels good about, and that not just Parks Commission, but RCDC and the council can support. And all of these things that we're looking at, both in terms of what we're doing during the meeting, is available to council to use in their discussions. And every time they've said, hey, will you bring this back to us, we have brought it back to them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I do think that there's clearly there's a limited set of options for how you can divide this up, and you're pretty much there. But I will also say that at the very first meeting, when Kurt presented his very first schemes, you tried to push the 0.6 through without more public input. And so I'm not really sure, you're kind of saying this both ways. It felt like at that moment you were like, I'm not hearing anybody interested in 0.4. Can we just move 0.6 forward? So I'm glad you're not doing that. I'm glad that you have slowed it down and you're taking public input, but let's just be consistent.
I would suggest that the reason the 0.6 became a factor was because the dog community looked at it, going to half, can we do this? If we, as a canine community, if this will settle it once and for all, then okay, let's talk about it and let's get dead serious. And we were quiet and we let everybody do their thing and talk about discussions and see where this is going to go from the initial prospect and such. And so we're all kind of slowly coming together, and the canine community is looking at it and going, all right, maybe we could live with 0.6 if that's it, if it's all over. And so that was the way people were feeling. Was that the case? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, when it looks like 0.6 is going to be what, somebody else says, no, it needs to be 0.55. And the point that it was said it needs to be 0.55, for those of us who have lived through this before, this has been a slippery slope for a long time. We had access to fields 1 and 2 and all around, and that was it. And they said, okay, you know, you give this up, you no longer access to 1 and 2, you get fields 3 and 4 and 5, you'll share them, this will be it. And everybody went, hey, that's great. We'd rather be back there away from Rollingwood Drive. We'd rather put gates. So we put up gates and we did fence repair and we did all of the usual stuff that you do. We even planted sod. God, we put a lot of sweat into putting that thing together. And it became, instead of the muddy, dirty spot that was the fields, that said it'll never grow when the dogs are running on it, it'll never be a pretty field. Well, you know what? It got watered, it got sodded, and son of a gun, it became a really pretty field.
It's very pretty.
It's a beautiful field. And then all of a sudden we're going, oh yeah, baseball goes, no, we'll get that. We'll get some of that too. So you're asking us to compromise again, getting angry at us because we don't compromise. We've already compromised. This is where we are. And this is why some of us are a little bit triggered by going, okay, we're moving to this, and then they claw some more. So we got this, but let's get more.
Okay,
That's it.
hold on.
End of tirade.
Kevin Shell is the next one who was standing up to speak.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
no.
Thank you, Diana.
You made a point, you made a point, and you made a point. And I didn't want to talk it all day, but I guess I got to talk about all this right now.
Talk to us, Kevin.
I agree with what Kevin said about, like, let's move stuff forward. But and also agree with what he said about how the council works. This council tends to take their time and deliberates and make sure they have all the feedback before they make a decision. Perfect example of that was the building height issue. That was pretty contentious at the beginning and did a whole lot of work with that to get it done. As far as what, you know, I agree with Alex, which, like, I owe an apology to some folks, is I did think this was going to be on the council agenda tomorrow night, at least have a slot where we could talk about it if that was what this commission wanted to do. I don't know what happened with that, so my apologies for anybody I misled on that, and it's not the case. And Diana made a really good point, which a lot of good points, but what I really want to focus on is there are a lot of people on this issue that haven't been heard yet. A lot of people. And anybody thinks we're going to move fast on this without hearing from those people and just talk about, here's the idea, let's do it, that's just not going to happen, right? And I think Kevin and I both are just sitting here going, we're going to talk about different options, we're going to listen and hear people. And I think part of our role to be here is to tell you all that and to say that. And if the two of us are saying, I think we can safely speak for the rest of the council, they're going to want to hear the people on this too. So with that said, I think what would be helpful is to have a little clearer, for the public, a little clearer idea of what the roadmap looks like for what's going to get delivered and what's going to look like. Is it going to be one option? Is it going to be a couple options? When is that going to happen? Right, just have this body be clear what, and Melissa, the fourth person, Melissa, she laid out a plan, but I think having that more clear in the agenda packet, this is what this body agrees to, and at what points they're going to push things to council and for what reason, would be helpful to remove some of the drama that goes on in the community about people thinking they're not going to get heard, or people are shortcutting the system, or, you know, or we're doing something to this group or we're doing something to that group. I don't think we're going to do that. But I'd rather us argue over things that matter, not over things that haven't happened yet, because people feel like they're going to get short shrift on this. So that's my 2 cents. Maybe it's $1.
Thank you.
One sentence.
All right, Kevin. One sentence.
And only because Diana mentioned somebody pushing for 0.55. I tried to advocate for 0.55, and I ran into a brick wall and got my head chewed off. So I'm just telling you, that's what
And it
happened.
did.
Okay. So, Kurt, it sounds like we would like, and again, I'll wait for a Parks Commission member to make a motion in this way, but it sounds like at the next council meeting, we would like to share the 3 options, taking out the trail in all of them. Taking out the middle trail in all 3 of those options. For now, maybe even removing the trees from the middle and putting an asterisk that trees could be added in the future. And that would be the 3 sizes that you did today would be the 3 that we would like to share with council to get feedback on.
There's 2 things I'd like to add
yeah,
to that,
go
if
ahead.
you don't mind.
Nope.
I do think that trees get big. 1 tree will do a lot. I think they could be added on the outside to
Yes.
add shade to the inside. So, Kurt, I don't know if you could find some strategic points away from the field, but still on the perimeter, to put even just 1 tree that would grow into big shade.
So,
not being a designer myself, I'm not sure where those strategic points would be, but
so maybe in here you're thinking somewhere?
I don't know, because I'm not a designer and I don't know what kind of trees he has planned, I think it'd be better that Kurt kind of figure that out, but I think we could add trees to get shade onto the field without inhibiting baseball. Does that make sense?
Mainly on this north side.
Yeah, that'd be great, on any corner, if it doesn't infringe upon the path or, you know,
In other words, if we take all those trees out of the middle,
right there,
Right here,
even near the entrance down here.
because that wouldn't be a hazard to baseball players, and it would still give some shade from the south
Is that
side,
the dugout?
especially the west side.
in other words, rather than take all the trees out.
Well, I would just leave that to Kurt, but I do think one tree will do quite a lot if it's well placed.
I do
The other
too.
thing I would ask, Kurt, you mentioned moving the pavers that are currently there, they're the dog memorial area, and then water, because water's important to both fields. So I don't know if we could have water access to the back area as well as to softball. I don't know how much softball and baseball would use the water fountains, but that water's not well placed. It rarely works. It's hot because it's close to the surface of the ground, the water is. So that's just something I think that should be thought about and incorporated into the plan.
Okay. Any other suggestions, improvements? So would y'all be comfortable with that being a motion, that we would share the 3 designs, moving the trees to the outside with council to get feedback? Who's
I
making
can
that
make-
motion?
I
Okay.
can make a motion that we submit the 3 designs to council, eliminating that middle trail and moving some of those trees
Mhm.
to the outside, and maybe looking at the possibility of having water available.
Mhm.
How did you put that?
Some water fountain water.
Some water
areas.
fountains.
Just some plans
In
for
the
better water
plans.
for
Mhm.
both fields,
Yeah.
actually.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay.
Can I
Yeah.
add a request for context? I think this is great to have these zoomed in pictures, but for context, it'd be nice to have one also that you send up that shows all the ball fields in green, so that we, all in the light green,
Mm-hmm.
and so that, and maybe that red line that's at softball is a dotted line, so that we can kind of see in context how much of the park is being used for baseball
Mhm.
versus how much for off-leash area.
Okay. Cool. Do we have a motion about creating anything for the dog park users rules canine club? Or we're not, or we're gonna let
I
them?
kind of like to let them run with that right now, and because it seems to me they've come a long way. They've really been brainstorming. I'd kind of like to see what they come up with and let them bring something to us.
So a
As
request
long as
out
they
there.
bring something
That's
to
what I
us
was
and
gonna
it
say.
doesn't just go off to council and.
Right.
No, it'll come here. Council's not gonna vote on anything like that without park commission's recommendation.
So at the next meeting, we would hope to have some sort of at least draft proposal around dog park user rules and canine
We'll
club.
get to that.
And I would, I just want to say, I'd like to see it not involve, funds, simply because I think, that might involve city staff. And we're
Right,
really,
I'm with you on
Yeah,
that. I
and
don't
we're
wanna
really-
tax our city staff anymore
yeah,
with this.
if it's possible to organize it somehow,
I
okay.
agree with you.
And that's all I have to say on that.
Okay. Anything else?
Are we gonna discuss the parking lot today?
So we're done on that topic.
Okay.
So parking lot, is there something specific you wanna talk about with parking lot?
I just have, this kind of goes back to, and it's about the parking lot and it's about the trash item that was up earlier on the agenda. I really think those are things that baseball could help us with, if baseball would be involved, because they really, if we could tweak that contract a little bit to give them a little bit more responsibility for cleaning up after their events, and also for directing parking during their events. And scheduling games
Yes.
in such a way that they don't concentrate their traffic during 1 hour, but stagger them.
Yes.
And I see that as kind of a dual purpose thing where the contract needs to be addressed a little bit. I mean, that's what's hard with a 10-year contract, is that suddenly you outgrow it, or there's not things in it that permit for the growth that's happening. So there are definitely some things that I think should be looked at in that contract to make all of this new stuff work really well. Because if we don't get that updated, then none of this is gonna look good and be successful. And from the maintenance of the stuff up there on the fences to the whole part of it. I can't tell you how much trash I've picked up, so I can only imagine if this item were put there by the staff, how frustrated they are at having to go every morning and pick up on a Monday after the weekend.
Well, and I know trash, if you don't have covered bins, then the raccoons, the skunks, the foxes, they all get
Help
into
with
them.
that,
And
yeah.
so even the best collection of them all get scattered during the nocturnal hours by the animals. So maybe we can work with the staff and with Western Hills Little League, not since we have an existing contract. I think having policies around that is, how and where they should take the trash at the end of the day. I definitely think that's something Western Hills Little League and the girls softball would be amenable to helping us, kind of police that and making
Even
sure
a
that
lost
it
and found
happens.
box. I mean, there's a lot of stuff left up there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if it were just in one local place, they knew they could run up to the field and look for it.
Yeah, for sure. I know the girls softball and baseball both do have a lost and found but again, I don't know, these are organizations, and Steve could speak to it if he's still there, are volunteers, and so really having someone committed to, okay, at the end of all games on Saturdays, one of you has to make a run through and let staff know. Because that's the other problem I notice even at WEA. The weekends are really tough because this staff isn't up there. They're here Monday through Friday, and so when stuff happens on Saturday and Sunday, there's not really anyone other than the police who are here to do that. So we may need to contract with our whoever's doing our cleaning, etc., that they send somebody on Saturday at the end of the day or Sunday. Really, it needs to happen at the end of the day and not wait overnight, because it just, like you said,
Which is why it's important it's put in that contract, because the city's paying for that.
I agree.
And
I
it's
agree.
not our trash all
Yeah.
the time. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's somewhere in their contract that
Yeah.
this is
I
their responsibility.
I feel certain it already is in their contract that they have to deal with the trash. But again, sometimes it's also educating the new volunteer that year of what the rules are, and here's the best way to get rid of it. All right. Anything else on the parking?
Well, there is one other thing,
Yeah.
which is reference to the fact that one of the problems with the plans that we've got is we're dealing with what are the problems now that we're trying to address. We're not living in the future of going, okay, we do all of this, and now what problems do we have? Nobody's addressing that. First thing that comes to mind once you bring up the parking was theoretically now we will have Canine Club on the fields at the same time that the kids are on the fields. So that's lots of cars, guys, and that's just one problem that we haven't really looked at. How are we going to deal with that?
Yeah.
Do most people not walk their dogs up there?
I think it's about 50-50.
I would guess that. Well, and I can tell you from running a youth sports organization that for every kid we have at a game, we have 3 cars. Grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, because they have other kids that are going to other activities, and we're talking about game days, not necessarily practice days are usually easier.
Sure.
But we'll have to work on that. And again, when you talk about the agreement, we're going to have to let them know that the maximum number of games you can have at any given time, even if we had 5 fields, you can't logistically have all 5 fields running at the same time. We don't have enough parking because no one's walking to the fields for games.
Right, of course not.
Yeah. So I shouldn't say no one, because there are some kids riding bikes and walking, but most of it is parents bringing younger
we've got
children who can't.
equipment and
Yeah.
all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff.
So, so many problems to solve, but all really fun ones. Yeah.
Do you have like a running list somewhere of all these things we need to
A running
work
list of
out
what?
going forward with the league? Like, like this cleanup stuff, I imagine that has to be part of the lease, and cities should just tell them, hey, you have to put in that. But these other issues, we'll tell them if we negotiate a lease many years down the road. Do you have a running list of those?
I'm sure I have like 5 running lists of it, but you know, is it one that's no? I mean, I think they're just different things. I'm sure the city has a list of them as well.
There's someone I've been told that is the keeper of the lease and talks to Western Hills Little League and softball about the lease. We are not the people that do that. So I would assume the city has, is there a liaison? I've been told like who keeps track of like the improvements they're supposed to do and how much money they're supposed to spend each year. We were told we didn't need to be a part of that, so somebody on council is that person. I don't know who it is. I've asked those questions many times. So somebody is the keeper of the lease in that relationship.
I would rather they know about this stuff and get ahead of it.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is
I
Steve
would
still
think-
on the line with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Because Steve comes almost every
Steve is
month.
here
Always
You
more
know, and so
regularly
he
than
does
anybody.
hear these things every time. And I know, and you know, he talks to Western Hills Little League as well about the stuff. And again,
Yeah, I mean, I'll text our coaches. We don't per se have a volunteer, but we have, it basically is the coach's responsibility to clean up after.
Well, maybe just a
So I will text our
reminder
coaches. I will
of
will
the league.
talk to Little League about sending the same type of email out to their coaches too.
Thank you
Still have
very
teen
much.
parents.
We appreciate your help.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see what else. So I guess some of these things, because we're getting to 1:30, we have discussion and possible action on treatment solutions for mosquitoes. That will, I know that was Sean's, so we'll punt that to a month where mosquitoes will be more at our attention. Suggestions to Friends of Rolling Park. I have actually made a commitment to Jeff Marks to meet with him. He's left. I think we're meeting on Thursday, if anybody else wants to come. He has some ideas about creating a website and some other ideas about doing fundraising.
Really?
And is very excited about it. And so I'll meet with him and see what else he wants to share that he could bring to our next Parks Commission meeting.
Excellent.
What time are y'all meeting?
I think 9 a.m. on Thursday. We haven't settled on a place yet. I said the park but he said maybe we would meet by Zoom, cause he had visuals that he wanted to share.
If you would text me.
Yeah.
And, if I'm available.
Okay.
Could I ask you a question, Ellen?
Yeah, it's 9
Regarding-
a.m. I'm gonna say 9 a.m. up at the top park.
So regarding, at one point, we had a whole conversation about the fact that we're not
Actually, I'll say
able
9 a.m.
to go to a link and just give money to the city electronically. Can you remind me what the problems with that are, why we can't do that on our website, or?
Currently, it's just a matter of the interaction between the website and the city's financial software to make sure that we can do it in the correct way and properly allocate it.
Okay.
It's not something we've forgotten about. It's something that it's more difficult for the city to overcome than it would be. Kind of like Melissa said earlier, with it's so easy to do it yourself. It's a lot harder for us to do it in a way that kind of satisfies all audit requirements.
So are you saying that if we set up a platform separate from the city website, that would be a possibility?
It's a possibility. It's the interplay between that platform and our software to make sure that everything's properly captured and everything's properly logged.
So
It's
does our
definitely not
website have
insurmountable.
the capability if we have somebody knowledgeable?
Certainly, our website has
Okay.
ways of embedding code into it, so you can actually embed various things in there. People who are better at computers than I can do that, but absolutely it's a capability of our website.
Okay, so it's something we could do as long as we had knowledgeable people to do it
Absolutely.
and direct it in the right manner.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you.
And it would still remain within the Rollingwood website.
Yes, within the Rollingwood website, basically a frame within one of those web
Okay.
pages.
Cool.
Okay, thank
Great.
you very much.
And the quarterly walkthroughs, don't forget to sign up if you get a chance. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I
All right, we're adjourned.
So I beat you
Thank
to it
you.
this time.